All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Let's take a look at this week in the stock market, any of the big headlines, and my opinions of what's going on these days. So to wrap up the month, this week the market ended up to cap off a strong month. This week we had certain things like the International Court of Trade blocking Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs. That made the market jump up like 1% the following day. So basically, the Court of International Trade ruled that the president, Donald Trump, had exceeded his authority under that 1970s that law, International Emergency Economic Powers Act. So basically, it said, hey, the law that you're trying to say that gives you the power to do this, you don't have the power to do this. So that was, for the market, that was a win. For the stock market, it jumped after that, and this week it ended up positive. It ended up 1.9% positive. So let's take a look at how the S&P is doing so far this year. The S&P is still pretty flat for the year. It's done nothing. It's only up 0.51%, so not a good year that the U.S. stock market is having. And if we think about why that is, well, there's a lot of economic uncertainty surrounding Donald Trump's tariffs. There's a fear of inflation because of the tariffs. But since the Court of International Trade has ruled against Donald Trump, he is appealing it. He did say he's going to go ahead and start appealing this, and the tariffs can still be in place for now. But, eventually, I don't think the impact from this is going to be as big as some people fear, and that should be a good thing for stocks moving forward. If we compare to the European index, then we'll see that year to date, the European index, the stocks Europe 600, is up 8% for the year, while the S&P 500 is flat for the year. So Europe still leading the U.S., and that led by, industries out in Europe like industrials, healthcare, financials, those large, big banks. That's helped Europe do better in comparison to the U.S., which is more reliant on big tech names. Tech has been the fourth worst performing sector in 2025. We can see that year to date, some of the best performing sectors in the stock market include industrials, utilities, consumer staples, financials, and that's because, utilities, you still need to have the electricity on, you still need your water, your gas, consumer staples, things that people need to buy, you still need to buy your groceries, your toothpaste. You still need to do things like that. Some of the sectors that should be doing better but aren't include healthcare sector, which is the third worst performing sector. If you can recall that when politicians are running for office, they'll make promises of cutting healthcare costs, bringing drug prices cheaper, things like that. When they get elected into office, they don't end up actually doing any of that, or the hurdles become too big to overcome. They don't end up getting anything done. But the difference here, Donald Trump has actually taken steps to, he did announce some kind of announcement that he wanted to pay the lowest cost for certain drugs out there. They have been trying to reform. RFK said he wanted to reform the FDA and things like that. All that has helped to keep the healthcare sector down. All the news surrounding United Healthcare. They're I think they're the largest insurer, but this still has been a lot of bad news coming out with the murder of their CEO and other things, the court investigations now that they're under. So all that has helped to weigh down the healthcare sector. Whereas before, once a president takes office, he doesn't act against the healthcare sector. That was supposed to bring it up. So that hasn't played out so far this year. But to wrap things up, I want to always talk about the long-term perspective. When we think about the events that are happening today, the events that we're worrying about these days, including tariffs, inflation, foreign wars. It's always important to keep the perspective of the long term. So I always tell people, hey, if you have a 5, 10, 20, 30-year time horizon, you should be focused more on the long term. And I get told, well, I mean, how do you even know what's going to happen in the next 10, 15 years? You don't know. However, if we can look into the past, we can see that we've already been through so many things. With the things that are happening this day and age are just another bump in the road to your long-term success. So I'll wrap this up by saying, focus on the long term. It's important to pay attention what's happening out there these days, but focus on your long-term goals. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for joining me again this week for the news for this week. Join me every week. I'm going to post a new video kind of updating what's been happening out there and my thoughts. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.